Hello, my name is Julia. I'll be discussing the poster I created representing how I envision my own domains of mind. I decided to draw my collage and create images that I think most creatively show my reason mind, my body mind, my emotions mind, and my wise mind. One awareness I have in my body is when I unintentionally crack a smile. That is why I drew a person with a smiling face underneath my body domain. Even if the smile was unintentional, it is one physical response that my mind becomes aware of almost instantly. Another image I showed in my body domain was a stomach full of butterflies. This represents when I have to public speak alone and my stomach starts to do flips and I get pretty jittery. The last image I have underneath my body domain is a person clenching their stomach. I use this because oftentimes if I miss breakfast or a meal, my stomach begins growling and I can't stop thinking about it all day. And oftentimes I get a little bit irritable, which leads me to talk about the emotions mind section of my poster. The donut on my poster is relevant because it represents my emotional mind when I am feeling emotionally strained and think that I deserve junk food that day. The picture with the hard eyes represents me acting upon my own desires rather than acting upon reason, which is a common occurrence with my emotions mind. A couple other images I have on my poster are the dollar sign, the shopping bag, and the credit card. This shows how I'm impulsive and vulnerable sometimes when it comes to spending money on things just because I want them. I drew an angry devil face, showing how my emotions can take over completely sometimes and causes me to get frustrated. But beside all these negative aspects of my emotions mind, it can also act as my own personal cheerleader and makes me feel proud when I've done something right. Next, I wanted to talk about my reason mind and show how it's my most productive and rational mind. I drew a little angel talking to a face to represent listening to my reason mind. It makes me do the best thing possible. The other images represent how my reason mind tells me to study for tests and make sure I'm prepared for the things I need to be. Lastly, I put wise mind in gold font because I wanted it to stick out and I wanted to creatively display how it's the most important domain of mind. I used a scale to represent how wise mind includes a balance of all the other domains of mind, which are body mind, emotions mind, and reason mind. I also created an image showing the importance of self-talk, and I also added a check mark to represent how using wise mind can help you achieve the most effective possible outcomes. Now that I'm finished speaking about my poster, I'd like to share an experience where I believe that using my wise mind would have been helpful. Last year, I was working in a restaurant and I was faced with a very angry customer. I was working the till and this customer had just waited in line for a very long time to pay. Our restaurant only takes cash and she lashed out when she read our sign that said we only took cash because she just had debit. Knowing that she'd have to go downtown to find an ATM made her very upset and she was cursing at our staff. Instead of staying calm and following the customer is always right rule, I became very frustrated and told her that there was another sign on the way in explaining how we only took cash and that I was just a waitress and I could not change that. In a way, I was hiding behind my own role and removing the blame off myself instead of trying to help her in that situation. Looking back now, I know that my body mind was tired because it was the end of my shift and I was hungry because my break was short. My reason mind was ignored by my emotional mind and my emotional mind was defensive because I felt like the customer was targeting me directly. If I realized that it wasn't my fault and understood that the woman was only angry because she had to wait in line for nothing, I could have eliminated the fact that I felt defensive. If I understood I was tired because of working late, I could have stopped my body mind from interfering with my wise mind. And if I used my reason mind to help the customer, I would have made sure the customer was right and that her feelings were valid, and therefore would have calmed her down a bit so the interaction would have resulted in a more positive outcome. And by doing so, these adjustments, I could have reached my wise mind. My strategy for wise mind is to always analyze and reflect on my feelings during situations of tension so that I can determine how to proceed in the most effective manner. My state of mind makes me feel more at peace and my mind at ease. I think that using wise mind in the situation I mentioned earlier would only have brought positive outcomes to others. It would have put me and the customer in a more calmer position. And I feel comfortable now using my wise mind strategies I mentioned earlier. I think in future situations, they would be very helpful.